Hello biologists and welcome. Today we're looking at nucleotides, the building blocks of DNA. My name is Mr Varoxis and I'll be taking you through this presentation today. As always, we've got our learning objectives. So by the end of the lesson today, you should be able to explain what nucleotides are, explain why nucleotides are important, explain what RNA is and how it's different to DNA, and I would encourage you to look at the introduction to DNA video prior to this one if you haven't already, just to get a good handle on what DNA is. And then correctly matching nucleotide base pairs. You should have the ability to do that after today's video. Okay, so from our introduction to DNA video, I want you to remember the relationship between chromosomes, genes, and DNA. And I think this is a fantastic image to be able to show that for you, okay? So we've got right here our chromosomes, okay? And then looking a little bit closer to that, genes and other nucleotides here reside in your 46 chromosomes. Remember, 23 from your mum, 23 from your dad. So our genes, they're nucleotides that are going to be expressed, okay, in the real world. And remember our nucleotide bases. We've got our double helix structure here, our sugar phosphate backbone here, and in the middle, the rungs of the ladder, they were our nucleotide bases. And from our previous video, we had A, T, C, and G, adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. So again, making a mnemonic to be able to remember those for our DNA is a really handy way to be able to come back and use that. So being able to match these guys up appropriately, because they match complementing each other in a specific way, that's a really easy exam question, and I guarantee you'll get it at some point along the way, but it's a core skill and it's how we make the proteins that our body needs at the right time. So the nucleotides, our A, T, C, and G, as we can see down here. So looking at the structure, we know they're the rungs of the ladder. And if we go to a single nucleotide, so A, T, C, or G, just one of those, as we said, we've got our sugar phosphate backbone. So there's our deoxyribose sugar and our phosphate. And this is the base here. Now it doesn't say whether it's A, T, C, or G, but if it did, we can just pop an A in there as well, and that's what it looks like. So this here, if you can imagine this with another circle down there, is the backbone of DNA that would continue on, and you'd have the different rungs of the ladder going along with you as well. So our nucleotides, complementary base pairing, how these guys join together in a specific way. Okay, so remember A, T, C, and G. So for DNA, A always bonds with T, and C always bonds with our G. And that's what's called complementary base pairing. Our adenine bonds with our thymine, and our cytosine bonds with our guanine. So this is what's shown here. This here is our sugar phosphate backbone. These here is our complementary base pairing of nucleotides. So we've got our A and our T there, our C and our G here, okay? And they're always joining together in this DNA molecule. Now, before in the introduction to DNA, I did mention ribonucleic acid, or RNA. And what is it? Okay, so we're going to look at that right now and compare it to DNA. So essentially we can look at RNA as a single strand of our DNA. We've got one difference but in our nucleotide bases. It's got an essential role in cell replication process and the synthesis of proteins, and that's something we're going to look at in a little bit later in detail when we're looking at cell replication, cell division. Now, the difference in the nucleotide bases. Instead of thymine, we've got one called uracil. So we've got our C, G, our A, and our U, all right, in our RNA. And RNA is looking very much like a single strand of our DNA. So as I said, our RNA bases, adenine, uracil, cytosine, guanine. So RNA, easiest way for you to remember this, another mnemonic. We've got our A, U, C, N, G. A unicorn cuts grass. That's just me making something up off the top of my head. Whatever works for you in terms of memory is a great way to go about it. Okay, so that's our RNA, and we'll see the important role that that has in the DNA replication process when we're looking at that in subsequent videos. Okay, from today, the questions that you need to ask yourself and be able to answer, what are nucleotides, okay? And the part of the building blocks for DNA, why nucleotides important, okay? They've got a code on there, so let's really think about that. RNA, what is RNA, the molecule itself, and how is it different to DNA? It's very, very similar, so being able to have those differences, maybe having a compare and contrast table where you have your RNA on one side and then your DNA on the other, and writing down the differences between the two is a handy way to remember them. Complementary base pairing, why these bases, A, T, C, and G, bond together with themselves in a specific manner, okay? They only like to join with each other in certain ways, okay, in certain combinations, and that's called our complementary base pairing. And on that, being able to correctly match those bases with the complementary base pairing, our adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine, that's our DNA. So I want you to remember that A bonding with T, C bonding with G, okay, and that's for our DNA. So being able to match those together, remembering we've got an RNA molecule in here now with one different base, okay, uracil is in there replacing thymine. That's one of the differences. So if you can get through all of those questions, then you've achieved the learning objectives for this video. Thanks, guys. Let's look at what's coming up. DNA replication, that is an in-depth process where we're looking at DNA, RNA, how they're interacting to replicate that DNA for cell division, okay? Mitosis and meiosis coming up. You might have covered those before, but we're going to look at them again as well. Cell division processes and mutations. What happens when things go wrong? Even our body makes mistakes, okay? It's a complex process. We've got to have a way to handle those mutations. And if we don't, things go a little bit haywire. Things like cancer would be an example of a mutation in our genes, okay? That's all we have for today. I look forward to seeing you in future videos. Take care.